What's going on, everybody? Welcome into a fresh hour of CBS Sports HQ. I'm Jacqueline DeAugustino. I'll be with you for the next hour or so. We got to talk about playoff hockey, right? Because I woke up this morning and I thought it was game day for game one of the Stanley Cup Final because it's been so long since we've had any playoff hockey. It feels like we've been waiting forever and ever and ever for this series to get going with the Florida Panthers and the Edmonton Oilers. It's a rematch. We know that. They meet again. So we're taking a look at Stanley Cup rematches in the expansion era and how they have all played out. So we're going all the way back to the 60s with Montreal and the Blues here. Montreal coming out on top. Fast forward to the late 70s against Boston, coming out on top in that back-to-back as well. The Islanders and the Oilers splitting that in the 80s, 08-09 with the Red Wings and the Penguins also splitting. So there's a giant question mark on what is going to happen here with the Cats in the Oilers. Are they going to split it? Are the Cats going to go back-to-back? Who knows? We'll have to see. Again, teams that return to the Cup Final after losing the prior year. The Florida Panthers, they have been in this spot before, losing to Vegas. They come back and win against Edmonton. The Penguins, 08-09, they came back and won with Sid the Kid after losing the year before. And then the Oilers come back and win it. So we'll have to see what happens with the Oilers this go-around. Are they going to win it with Connor McDavid, with Leon Draisaitl, with Stuart Skinner, who has been really phenomenal, by the way? We're going to have to see what happens. But we have a treat here for you in studio. Pierre, McGuire, so excited for you to join us. We've talked a lot of hockey leading up to this moment, but it's great to have you here in person.
Jacqueline, your passion for the sport is off the charts great. As somebody who makes their living in hockey, thank you so much for your passion.
Oh my gosh, passion, awesome. Delusion, just being crazy about the Florida Panthers. Bob is my king. I digress. You have some hardware for us as well. Kind of show
this is a 91 Stanley Cup ring, and our next guest is actually a big part of it. William Scott Bowman.
Yes, Scott Bowman. We want to bring him in to join us here. The resume speaks for itself. Scott, we are so excited to have you join us here for this conversation on the Cup Final. Really quickly, I was just making sure I was getting the resume correct, and I had to count, I think, like 12 different times to make sure I was getting all of the Cup Final accolades and all of the wins that were properly right in my head. Make sure I wasn't going to skip any of those. What, 9 as a head coach?
Yes.
Absolutely remarkable. Gentlemen, before we dive into the exact matchups here, I just want to talk about the rematch of it all, right? Because we had talked about it different ways, teams that have come back after losing. And Scott, I want to get to you first because you have been in many situations, back-to-back situations, right? You've won back-to-back, lost back-to-back, a lot of different spots here. But what is that like, preparing for a rematch and seeing another strong team yet again on the biggest stage in hockey?
Well, obviously, if you've been through it the first time, it is a bit of an advantage. It doesn't mean that you're going to win, but the Panthers found out when they played against Vegas, and even going back to in the 80s, I wasn't involved, but I remember a story about Wayne Gretzky. They were trying to their first time they played the Islanders. The Islanders beat them up, and he said after the game they were walking by the Islander bench or by the room. The Islanders were celebrating, and they had all kinds of patches and all kinds of bandages all over their face and their arms and everywhere. And he said our guys looked at that and said, "That's what we have to be like, when we play again." And of course they won, I think four out of 5, and nearly won 5 in a row. But it's an advantage if you've been there before. So thusly this year, the Panthers, this is their 3rd time, and of course with the Oilers, it's their 2nd in a row. But I don't know. Starting at home might be a bit of an advantage in the final because you have to travel. It's a distance traveled with these teams. I'm not sure how many places would be further than these two, and so like the Panthers would have probably. I guess they got here yesterday, Monday, and then there's a big media day today. So, but the Oilers have been off for nearly a week. Both teams have had a good rest. That's the one. There's no advantages. Sometimes you get an advantage when you have to start the next series 2 or 3 days and the other team's been waiting for you. So I would say all bets are off as far as who's got an advantage because they're starting at home. They've been through it last year, and the Panthers now are on their 3rd straight.
Yeah, we're going to talk more about home ice in Edmonton and how they performed there. But I want to get your angle here, Pierre, because we showed, all the back-to-backs and going back to 08-09 with the Red Wings and Pittsburgh. And you were on the broadcast team for that. So what was that energy like being around that, where there was that back-to-back with phenomenal players and two phenomenal teams giving it another crack at it?
Jacqueline, the interesting part about 08 is you knew Detroit was going to win. Pittsburgh wasn't ready. They weren't in their element. They didn't have enough experience. Scotty just talked about the experience factor that you have to have, and it does make a difference. In 09, it was different, and I'll tell you how it was different. The Penguins got comfortable early in the series, and then Detroit got comfortable in the middle part of the series. And I'll never forget walking out of Game 5 in old Joe Louis Arena. And I walked out with one of our old players, Mario Lemieux. Scotty coached him. I had the honor of being there with Scotty when we had Mario. And he was the owner of the team. And I remember saying to him, Ace, that was his nickname, Ace, tough game today. He goes, no, we got him right where we want him. We're going to go back. We're going to win Game 6, and we're going to come back here and win Game 7. And that's the iconic moment of Marc-Andre Fleury in Game 7, making that unbelievable save with no time left on the clock against Nicholas Lidstrom. And I can tell you right now, Jacqueline, Mario Lemieux set the template as an owner for his team because he had the street cred from having won in 91 and 92. And quite honestly, being considered one of the best players in NHL history, he actually went and addressed the team after Game 5. And it gave him all kinds of impetus to go win Game 6 and 7.
Isn't it funny how culture and just the things that you build, off the ice can make such a difference, and stories like that are really cool, and we love hearing them. Scott, we had you on a full screen with Chris Knobloch. I don't know if you caught that here, but you've won 9 Stanley Cups as a head coach in the National Hockey League. 4 of those in a row. So I'm just curious, how do you motivate your players? Of course, going back, the first one, I feel like there's nothing like it, right, for that current roster, but then going back to back to back, how do you keep players in the front office and everybody hungry to repeat that success again and again and again?
Well, it's such a difference to what I coached in the time now, because I did not coach in the salary cap world. And you notice even on the Panthers this year, they lost players, and when you're winning a cup like they did last year, half a dozen players took off and got better contracts, and the Panthers couldn't handle that. But they came up this year and they got new players. When I was coaching, we had usually the same players. I remember in Montreal, there was 13 players played the four in a row. 13 players played every one of those years. That would never happen this time in this era with the salary cap. But the Panthers acquiring two big additions that give a lot of credit to the organization led by Bill Zito, because they acquired Seth Jones in a major trade, not just for this year, for his contract, and also bringing in Marchand. Brad Marchand was a winner with Boston. So when you bring in players like that and you add them, because if they wouldn't have brought those players in, it would have been awful difficult for this team to get as far as they have. So it's such a different era now that if you do bring in players, then you have to have pretty astute management to do what this team did. And the Oilers are very similar. They brought in 4 or 5. They didn't have the money to go out and get players, but they brought in players, 3 or 4 players that are in their lineup. And one thing with the Oilers, they're sort of like the Panthers in the fact that they're not just a 2-man team, even though they have Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, and they have Barkov and Reinhart and players like that. It's the depth of these teams that are probably going to decide the series.
We're going to get way into the depth, but really quickly, I just want you to share your story about the back-to-back situation with Pittsburgh and what that was like being a part of that.
Well, it's such an amazing team event. Scotty was part of it. The late Bob Johnson was part of it. The team-building aspect that Scotty just talked about, Jacqueline, with Craig Patrick, our general manager, and in the first year with Scotty Bowman being director of player personnel. They identified the strengths and weaknesses of the organization, and you could sense in 1991 just how good the team was, because they really were a team. And then in 92, probably the magical moment, we were down 3-1 to the Washington Capitals in the first round, and Scotty had a team meeting with one person, Mario Lemieux, and the assistant coaches. And Scotty actually said to the players, Mario, you're going to run the team meeting the next day. and he did. And we changed our forecheck, and we had to win game 5 and 7 on the road. We eventually did that. That's a coaching brilliance of Scotty Bowman, and he'll never brag about himself, so I'll brag about him as his old roommate. But it made a huge difference. But what I remember the most is that, again, it goes back to experience. Our guys never panicked because they had the experience of winning, Jacqueline, in 1991. So it carried over to 1992.
Pierre, we love your analysis, and we love the fact that you're willing to brag on Scotty here if he's not going to brag himself.
It's easy to do. He's the best ever, and nobody will be better.
So let's talk about the star power. We kind of alluded to it right on Edmonton with Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. If we talk about Connor McDavid specifically, this is a guy who's been compared to Sidney Crosby and Wayne Gretzky in so many different aspects. He is phenomenal and the best hockey player in the world right now. Scotty, I know you've seen, you've coached, you've been around a lot of elite talent, but can you tell us just how good Connor McDavid is in your eyes?
Well, his speed is off the charts. You know, the only player I could ever compare in a different era is Bobby Orr. You know, we didn't have the speed in those days, but Bobby would fit in perfectly with the group today. And Connor just can. You saw the goal he scored the other night, a big goal to make a 2-goal advantage again. And he just his crossovers. You know, he trains unbelievable in the off season. So I would say his. You know, he's been a great player for many years, and it's going to be a great matchup because one of the players in the Panthers, I think he won a couple of more trophies this year, is Alexander Barkov. And you know, both #1 picks in different years, and they'll be matched up quite a bit in this series, and it's going to be quite a matchup.
Pierre, what would this do for Connor McDavid's legacy if he can join Sid the Kid and the Great One as a player to go to the Cup, lose it, and then come back and win it the next year? He already has a remarkable future ahead of him and has done so much. But if he does win, what would that do for his legacy?
It puts him up in the pantheon of great players in the National Hockey League. And, you know, you think about it. You talked about Sidney Crosby. I'll talk about Mario Lemieux. Scotty talked about Wayne Gretzky. I'll talk about Brian Trottier. Scotty talked about all these great players he had the privilege of coaching. I was a kid growing up in Montreal watching Larry Robinson and Guy Lafleur. I saw the late great John Beliveau in 1971 win his last Stanley Cup in Old Chicago Stadium. It puts him up there in the pantheon with all these great players. And that's a magical place to be. You know, they always say when you win the Stanley Cup, you get to the top of the NHL mountain. And I can tell that you haven't had the privilege of being there. The view, Jacqueline, is amazing. The view from the top of the NHL mountain is absolutely awesome.
And wouldn't it be crazy to have him win and then, you know, more than likely win the Conn Smythe, and you win it back-to-back years, one time for the losing team and one time for the winning team. Scotty already kind of alluded to it with having home ice advantage for Edmonton, and the Panthers are pretty darn good on the road, 8-2 this postseason. But do you think they can keep it rolling against Edmonton, who is 6-1 on home ice?
I think the first game's going to matter a lot, Jacqueline, and part of that, and I'd be curious to hear what Scotty has to say, matchups matter a lot, especially when you're looking at a lineup in Edmonton that's got Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. A lot of times they play on different lines. So what Florida has, they have Barkov as a center on one line and they have Sammy Bennett on another. Neither one of them are fun to play against. so for Paul Maurice, he actually has a little bit of an advantage. And the thing that I think could be an X factor for the Florida Panthers, that we see the creative brilliance of Sasha Barkov there to Carter Verhaeghe, is that Florida has Anton Lundell.
Yeah.
And our guest, Scotty Bowman, talked to me about Anton Lundell when he saw him playing over in Sweden many, many moons ago. And Lundell is one of those X-factor players that could make a massive difference in this series because of the fact Florida's going to have to win on the road at some point if they're going to win the Cup. So they have 3 centermen that can really match up favorably with the top 2 centermen of the Edmonton Oilers, and that could make a big difference for Florida.
So, Scotty, tell us more about Anton Lundell, and do you think he's going to be a big X factor here if they do want to, you know, split the first 2 games or steal a game on the road to start this thing off?
Well, he's a great young player. He's not an offensive player like some, but it's a great feeling for a coach to be able to put out a player in the late stages of the game. And, you know, they have a pretty good 1-2 punch with Barkov and he going back-to-back. When you're winning a game and there's a couple of minutes left, you know, you got a couple of shifts left for your top players. And I think, though, on another hand, we haven't mentioned, one of the big challenges in this series, because one has done it and one hasn't, is the goaltending matchup. And Bobrovsky's really had a great playoff again. And just like when there's games that you say, well, he wasn't as good tonight as he was last year, and then all of a sudden he comes up and he outplays the other goalie. So I think that's one thing that the Edmonton, they really, when you look at what they did this year, they changed goalies after the first, tough start with Los Angeles, and they brought in a goalie that didn't play a lot, and he won 6 in a row, and then he got injured, and bang, they brought in Stuart Skinner, and he's been just lights out. He had quite a matchup against Dallas, with Jake Ottinger, with the reputation that he had, and he really played well in that series. So that's going to be the matchup that I'm watching, is the goaltending on both sides, because both of these teams are going to manufacture offense. They got people that can put the puck in the net. They have defense core that are really pinching in all the time. They can really help the forwards. So I would say that's the biggest matchup. They talk about other ones, but Bobrovsky and Skinner.
And Pierre, I want to get your take, because we've talked about this so many times that it's hard to believe that this is the same goaltender that we saw for Edmonton, the one that got pulled in round one, those first 2 games against the Kings, right? In the Stuart Skinner experience in the playoffs, it can be a little nerve-wracking if you're an Edmonton fan, a little up and down here. But are you expecting him to kind of stay on this upwards trajectory and not really get got here against the Panthers?
I don't know him very well as a person. I do know him very well as a player. He's got to be so mentally tough, Jacqueline, to go through what he went through. Yeah. Scotty just alluded to it. He got pulled after the second game in the LA series. In the first round, Calvin Pickard came in. And then the first game he comes back to play for Edmonton against Vegas, he gets beat with less than a half a second to go in the game. But he finds a way to bounce back and win the series against Vegas with shutouts on back-to-back games, which is amazing to me. So mentally, he's got to be tough. I think that's a matchup that favors Florida more than it favors Edmonton, though. Bobrovsky's just proven it. He's already won the Stanley Cup. He's played in the Olympics. I think Bobrovsky's got the edge over Skinner when it comes to that matchup. I
know. We had a conversation not too long ago that was your Conn Smythe winner. Yep. If it does, if the Panthers do win, of course. Pierre, Scotty, it has been an absolute pleasure being in the presence of hockey greatness on the desk through Zoom here, talking to you guys about the Stanley Cup playoff. We certainly appreciate it, and it feels like we've been waiting forever for this series to get underway, but I'm excited for tomorrow here. Game 1, Wednesday, June 4th. Games 1 and 2, those are in Edmonton. Pierre, Game 3 is on my birthday. So, Florida Panthers, the hockey gods, please, all I want for my birthday is a game, I don't know, I guess let's take a game 1, 2, 3, and 4 win, but at least 3 and 4. At least be tied up, right?
We got to talk to somebody about that.
Okay, we will sure do it. We're looking forward to it. Game 1 again of the Cup Final with the Panthers as they try to go back-to-back. The Oilers obviously have other plans. That kicks off June 4th at 8 p.m. Eastern from Rogers Place.
Panthers have done it. Stanley Cup champions!
Soon. We'll see you next year. Appreciate it.
Panthers, Oilers. The rematch, inevitable.
It's Edmonton and Florida in the Stanley Cup Final. Out in front, it's Marchand. His first as a Panther.
There's no more than 7 games left this season, no matter what.
Right now, the Cup is in Edmonton, but soon enough, it will be here in South Florida. Let's welcome on Pierre McGuire. First of all, welcome to South Florida. When was the last time you were down here?
A long time ago. No,
yeah?
I'm just kidding. I've been here for a number of times, but it's so nice to be here and great to visit with both of you.
So better to be here than Edmonton, I hear.
Yeah.
Well, it depends what time of year in Edmonton, because even in the summer when it's nice and hot, there's still big bugs out there, trust me when I tell you.
Well, Amanda looked up the ticket prices, and I think a lot of people were surprised to learn it's actually more expensive to get in down here in Florida than it is in Edmonton this series.
That's what it'll be, about $350 to get into the Game 1 in Edmonton, and Game 3 down here. It'll cost about $700. So let's get into, we're going to talk with Pierre, who's been a legend in this game for so very long, about how these teams were built. And we're going to start with the Florida Panthers, and everybody down here loves loves Bill Zito. Give him all the credit in the world for the Matthew Tkachuk trade, even at the trade deadline, you know, going after Brad Marchand. Who would have thought that? But then all the way back to Bob, getting on this team before Bill Zito came in. What were the biggest pieces for you?
Well, this year's been huge for them, man. And when you really think about it, well, you had Seth Jones, you had Brad Marchand. Those are gigantic players to add to your thing. But you look at Sam Bennett, you look at Matthew Tkachuk, you look at, you know, all these different players that have come in. They all say the same thing. They have character, they have experience, they have grit, and they're coachable. So if you're going to add players at the deadline, you got to add players that are very like that.
What about the culture that they've built down here? Because that seems what is talked about so much of the culture of these guys. And even with Brad Marchand coming in, people were saying, look, I will always think of him as a Bruin, but my God, he was supposed to be a Florida Panther.
Culture matters so much in hockey. We're the only sport that doesn't have out of bounds. People forget that. So if you don't create the proper culture, your guys are going to mail it in on the field of play. So the culture really matters a lot. Coaches create that. Management people create that. Internal leadership creates that. And I look at Aaron Beckblad right now. I look at Sasha Barkov right now. I look at the professionalism of the organization of the Florida Panthers. It's pretty amazing to watch it.
What would a young Pierre think about how hockey really lives in Florida now, between the success of the Lightning over in Tampa and the Panthers here in South Florida?
It's been phenomenal, Chris, and I think ownership matters a lot when you really build teams. So I look at over in Tampa right now, Jeffrey Vinnick's done a magnificent job as a caretaker of the Tampa Bay Lightning. And then I look at the Viola family here in South Florida. They've been phenomenal. So they've been these two families that have created unbelievable opportunities for players to come to a no-tax state where they don't have to shovel snow, and they've created these cultures that are phenomenal, and the guys really care about playing here.
Okay, so I want to ask you, though, about the no tax thing. Is that that big of a deal? Because I listen to about a zillion hockey podcasts right now, and they're saying, oh, well, this is the reason Florida's becoming so good. But, I mean, do you think how much of that is a part of it?
It's part of it, but it's not the biggest part. The biggest part is what you talked about before, man, and I agree with what Chris was saying, too. Culture matters. Leadership matters. Types of players that you go out and get matter. So when you're building your team, if you don't get the right people, it doesn't matter whether there are taxes or not. You still lose. I'll use Tampa, or I'll use Nashville as an example, just so you guys understand. Tennessee has no taxes, too. Last I checked, they weren't a playoff team this year, and they will be in the one Stanley Cup Final over the course of their history in the National Hockey League. So, no, I don't think that's the most important thing, but I do think it's part of it. There's no question.
How do you build a team like this? I mean, you go back over 10 years, and you've got some major players from that 2014 draft that are huge.
Yeah, I want to throw in there. So, and then the NHL put out, you love the picture of, they do go check out their Twitter account and their social media account. You know, I guess it's X, not Twitter anymore, social. Instagram, how about that? Leon Draisaitl, Sam Bennett, Aaron Ekblad, Sam Reinhart, all in that 2014 draft. And I mean, that was just phenomenal for this team.
No, it's unbelievable. Then you look at 2013 with Barkov, Seth Jones, and Carter Verhaeghe. I mean, the Florida Panthers, yes, they've drafted well, but look at the players they've acquired from other organizations. Jones, Verhaeghe, Reinhart, Bennett, Vitek Vanacek, Gustav Forsling, A.J. Greer, Nico Mikkola. This has been a huge breakout year for him, man, and he's been fantastic. He was originally drafted by the St. Louis Blues, goes to the New York Rangers, and now he's a stalwart for the Florida Panthers. It's really an amazing story.
And on the ice.
On the Oilers side, I mean, they did the same thing. Draisaitl in 14, McDavid in 15. Each of those guys drafted by a different GM, both of them out, and then another GM out, and then two more interims out. I mean, it's crazy. It hasn't been a straight line up for this franchise. How have they been able to stay the course with such changes in leadership?
You know, I think the biggest thing is getting Draisaitl, where they were able to do that in Edmonton, and getting Connor McDavid. Those are instantaneous impact players that make a massive difference for your organization. Darnell Nurse probably started it all, and he had some tremendous years when he was younger. But if you look at the 2013, 2014, 2015 draft, all these players for both teams, they're right in the middle of their maturity as athletes. And that's about how long it takes. It takes about 7 to 10 years for you to really thrive as a professional athlete, because what we have, like basketball and baseball, we have an 18-year-old draft. Whereas in the NFL, it's not an 18-year-old draft. It goes a lot quicker when guys turn pro because they're a lot older. So it makes a big difference in hockey.
If they don't win, do you think there's a chance that Connor McDavid goes somewhere else? There's so much talk around this right now.
It's a fair question, Amanda, and I got to tell you, just to be totally honest, I don't think so. And I think part of why I don't think so is because if you look at who the head president of hockey operations is right now, Jeff Jackson, very good relationship with Connor McDavid, and they went out and hired Chris Knobloch, who's Connor McDavid's junior coach with the Erie Otters in the Ontario Hockey League. So I'd be surprised if he were being a rush, plus his running mates, Leon Draisaitl. And you know, when you're surrounded by great players like that, it's hard to leave sometimes. That's Sidney Crosby in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, that's true.
What kind of pressure is on McDavid and this franchise to finally deliver the cup back to the homeland?
Chris, it's massive. I can't even begin to pretend with you guys. You know, I don't know what it's like to be a baseball player, a football player, but I do know what it's like to be a hockey player and a hockey coach. I can only imagine what it's like to be a New York Yankee to try to win. I can only imagine what it's like to be a New York Giant and try to win, or a Boston Red Sox player. But I can tell you, hockey is everything in the province of Alberta, and in the city of Edmonton, it is a massive thing. Every single time these guys go to the rink, it's a big deal. And if they don't win, it's almost, people forget that there are 82 games in the National Hockey League season. Every game's like the Super Bowl for these guys. And if they don't play up to expectation, people get really mad at them. It's a tough neighborhood, it really is. I love the passion of Albertans, and I love the passion of Oiler fans. I've coached a lot of their players, and I've coached a lot of games there. But it's an unforgiving environment.
Were you suspicious? I know that Paul Maurice is a very, very suspicious person. I don't know about Chris Knobloch. Were you suspicious as a coach?
Yeah.
I want to know the details when we get off air.
Yeah, no, I was suspicious of a lot of things because my mentor was Scotty Bowman, and he was suspicious of everything.
There you go.
Pierre McGuire with us here as we get ready to start the Stanley Cup Final, Part 2 between the Oilers and Panthers. Game 1 tomorrow, Wednesday in Edmonton. The Oilers with home ice. It'll come back here to South Florida on Monday for Game 3.
The Stanley Cup Final finally here. It's a rematch between the Oilers and the Panthers, in which, of course, the Panthers won it a year ago. They partied down the streets of South Florida, and now they won more, but not if Connor McDavid has anything to do with it. There's so much star power in this matchup that we had to rank them all. We've got our hockey analyst and former Stanley Cup champion Pierre McGuire joining us ahead of Game 1 at Rogers Place on Wednesday. Pierre, two things. Number one, I can't help but be blinded by this Stanley Cup ring that you've got on your finger here. So just tell us a little bit more about your ring.
This is a 1991 Pittsburgh Penguins Stanley Cup ring. Proud of it. It was good. And we had Scotty Bowman on, the legend, this morning. He's only got 9 of them.
I know. Great conversation, by the way. Go check that out on our YouTube pages. I also want to point out that Pierre McGuire is going to go through ranking your players currently playing in the Stanley Cup Finals. And why is he qualified? He's been on the ice as both a coach and a broadcaster for 16 seasons. And for those of you at home, that's more than 85 games. So, Pierre, I say all that to say that you were the man for this job. So let's go through your top 10. We start with a guy who has only been in South Florida for just a few minutes, but he's had a huge impact, Brad Marchand.
It's amazing, Haley, what he's been able to do as a player in the National Hockey League. He was a first-line player when you think about it, when he was playing in Boston. Now he's playing as a third-line player with Luostarinen and also Anton Lundell. And that line, such an impact line for the Florida Panthers. So I have him at 10 overall. And remember, he won the Stanley Cup in 2011, so he knows how to win.
He's making his 4th career Stanley Cup Finals appearance and has the 4th most career playoff points among players. So many good things when it comes to Brad Marchand. Let's go to number 9, and to do so, we go over to the Edmonton side here, where we find Evan Bouchard, the most goals and most assists by a defenseman in the playoffs to this point. Pretty good spot there at number 9.
Yeah, no, and you know what's the biggest thing about Evan? He's improved so much defensively. One of my former players, Paul Coffey's working there with Mark Stewart, coaching the defense in Edmonton. Bouchard, for the longest period of time, Haley, was known as a one-trick pony. He could shoot the puck to a wall. But now he's become an elite puck mover. He's done a real good job identifying how to take away time and space defensively. And I think the biggest thing is the confidence he has in the power play, playing with Leon Draisaitl and Connor McDavid. That helps a lot. Sometimes that can be intimidating for a defenseman. It hasn't been for Evan Bouchard, so that's why I have him at 9.
2 names you mentioned that we're going to get to in a minute, but before we do, let's go back over to the Panthers, where we find Seth Jones at number 8. I love the story with Seth Jones. Most people, or some people, don't know that his dad was an assistant coach with the Denver Nuggets, and his first introduction to the Stanley Cup was the Avs when he was just 6 years old. He had a relationship with the team, so he gets to watch one at 6 and now play for one here as your number 8 player on our list.
It's an amazing story when you think about Seth Jones. I mean, he's been part of a U.S. World Junior team that won gold over in Russia. He played for the great Phil Howard. Housley over there. He's never really had a lot of sustained success in the National Hockey League until he got to South Florida, Haley. And he's been so great. Dominant on the power play, dominant on the penalty kill. A guy that has to log a lot of big minutes in 5-on-5 situations. He's been really special, and a great acquisition by Billy Zito, the general manager of the Florida Panthers.
Man, where would you rank him on this list? Bill Zito, he's got to be number one.
Number one.
Yeah. He has been so special orchestrating this team for Florida. If we go to number 7, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, Connor McDavid referred to him as a Swiss Army knife. He says he can do it all, and he does it all at a high level. That's what Connor McDavid, the best player in the world, has to say about him. What says you?
He's special because of his brain power. This guy's doing, math problems at night where most guys aren't. They're playing checkers. This guy's playing at another level. He's not the fastest guy. He's not the strongest guy. He's not the biggest guy. What he is he's the smartest guy. He makes plays in confined areas. He makes the players around him better. He's a natural centerman that played just down the road from Edmonton in Red Deer before he was the first overall pick of the Edmonton Oilers. But the thing that stands out to me about Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, brain power, elite brain power, and that's why he's got the ability to make the players around him better.
You can't teach that IQ,
No
hockey
chance.
IQ. It's
No
right
chance.
there, sitting 4th in playoff scoring with 18 points. At number 6, we find Matthew Tkachuk, and I like number 6. At first, I was like, wait, he's like one of the best players, but given what we've seen out of him, 6 makes sense. I remember when he first moved down here a few years ago, he came over, and one of the things he told us on his introductory press conference was that I'm going to bring a championship to South Florida. Not only has he done that here, Pierre, but he's taken them back 3 times, at least put them in potential to do it 3 times.
He's just a whole lot of nasty, you know what I mean? Haley, when he plays, he understands how to dominate board play. He understands how to be a thorn in the side of the other team's top players. He knows how to establish body position in the opposition slot. And to me, the biggest thing about Matthew, a little bit like Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, he's got an insane brain for the game, Haley. He really understands how to make players around him better. So you look at the chemistry he has with Sam Bennett, you look at the chemistry he has with Carter Verhaeghe, they make things happen. And then on the power play, Matthew's so good.
He also knows how to get under the other team's skin.
He's good at that.
He's really good there. You mentioned Sam Bennett. That's where we go next at number 5. 10 goals in the postseason. He has just truly been so special for South Florida.
I know in South Florida they got a lot of golf courses, so you get to have mulligans. Calgary Flames would love to have a mulligan on Sam Bennett. Sam Bennett's great because he drives everybody nuts. He's fast, he's physical, he's nasty. He understands his role. He's amazingly coachable, and he's thriving playing for Paul Maurice. I think Paul Maurice has done such a good job for Sam Bennett. He's really resurrected his career. You got to remember, Sam Bennett was a 3rd overall pick, and he was just thrown to the side of the garbage heap. He really was. And he comes to South Florida, and he resurrects his career, and I think Paul Maurice had a lot to do with that.
We've talked a lot about his physicality in the postseason. Brad Marchand said, quote, he's just a player you love to have on your team and one you hate to play against. And we've seen that with Sam Bennett. If we go to number 4, we go to the goaltender. That, of course, is Sergei Bobrovsky. Playoff Bob is always on a different level. But what have you seen out of him that has him at number 4 here?
His rebound control's a lot better this year. He's getting a lot of help from his defense. And I think the biggest thing about Sergei Bobrovsky going forward, he's won the Stanley Cup. He doesn't have any more doubters. He's got this self-internal mechanism that rings of confidence. So I think that he's the guy that's going to be, if Florida wins, I think he'll be the Conn Smythe Trophy winner.
He wraps up our trio of Florida Panthers here on this list midway through the pack. Now we got to go back over to the Edmonton side at number 3, and that's where we find Leon Draisaitl, Pierre.
And how could you not have Leon Draisaitl in the top 3? I mean, you look at him, he's big, he's skillful, he can score from any angle. He's got an overpowering presence in terms of attacking off the rush or scoring off the cycle. He's a guy that can play with lesser players, he can play with great players. He's unbelievable on the power play. And that one-time shot he has on the right side of the power play as a left-hand shot is overwhelming. He can beat you far side, he can beat you short side. Leon Draisaitl is a world-class player. He's a superstar.
Currently on a 6-game point streak there, Leon Draisaitl is scoring streak, I should say. So he comes in at number 3. We go to number 2, which is where we find the current Selke winner this year in Alexander Barkov. 2nd straight year, 3rd time overall. I mean, what more can you say about what Barkov has done for this team?
This is the only thing Bill Zito didn't do. He didn't draft Sasha Barkov. Dale Talon deserves a lot of credit for that. Good on you, Dale. All that being said, Sasha Barkov is great defensively. He matches up against any player in the National Hockey League. He can create offense. Look at the game-winning goal that they helped create. against the Carolina Hurricanes in the deciding game when he moved the puck to Carter Ferraghi. I can't say enough good things about Sasha Barkov, and he's a tremendous leader. He's revered by his teammates.
He is plus 600 to win the Conn Smythe. I believe last time I looked, that was third shortest odds, but we know who number one belongs to. It is Connor McDavid with Edmonton. He won the Conn Smythe last year despite losing in the series. So this year, he comes in at number one, Pierre, on your list. He's trying to win that award again, and most importantly, he's trying to win a Stanley Cup.
Haley, all I have to say is one thing about him. Human highlight reel. You don't have to say anything else about Connor McDavid. He does it all. Fast, skillful, passionate, nasty when he has to be. He makes everybody better. And you got to go watch him play because he's worth the price of admission.
I did not enjoy watching him against my Dallas Stars in that last series.
No, you did not.
But I will give you the respect. He is number one for a reason. Pierre McGuire, I'm so excited to have you in studio.
I had so much fun.
Pierre.
Thank you.
Hang out with us as we take a look here at the odds to win the Conn Smythe. We just talked about him. Connor McDavid coming in at plus 100. Alexander Barkov sitting there at plus 600. A lot of Panthers on this list, though. We'll have to see who wins it at the end of the series.